Salut everyone! In this video, we'll be talking about Fedora 42. And let me tell you right off the bat, I'm disappointed. Are you ready? Let's get into it. As always, let's start with a little bit of context. I was pretty happy about the latest release of Fedora 41. It was, in my opinion, one of the best, if not their best release to date. But this release here is, how to explain? Not the one. Definitively not the one. And to understand really where I come from, if you look at the overall changelog moving from Fedora 41 to Fedora 42, you will notice there is a lot of like upgrade under the hood, but there is really like not a lot of upgrade that the end user is going to really like appreciate. The first one that really stand out for me is the release of the new Anaconda web UI for the Fedora Workstation version, like the GNOME one. Like this was to me like a big improvement in terms of like installation experience for the end user. And I have to say, like they nailed it, but not nailed it at the same time. I will tell you a little bit like after. But like this one was one of the top three, I would say, like improvements that required some type of like attention from us, user in general. The second one is the fact that the KDE spin moved from being a spin as being like a fully variant edition on Fedora. So what it means is like now the dev are going to be working a little bit more on Plasma and the way it integrates with Fedora. And this to me is a big news. And we will see later in the video how important it was in terms of like user experience. And spoiler alert, And the last, in my opinion, like important point related to Fedora 44 is the newcomer on the block on the list of spin. Fedora Cosmic Spin. So this is the latest like desktop environment from System 76, which is like, I believe, still in alpha as we speak, and become one of the Fedora spin. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting that they are willing to take those risks and bring this desktop environment, which is not even finished, within the realm of the spin of Fedora. And I like when maintainers take risk, but here you will see it didn't really pay off. And again, like we're going to talk about it later in the video. And before we move to the traditional format of my approach when it comes to testing a distro, which is like the pros and the cons related to this iteration of a Linux distro, I want to talk about my approach, because I'm pretty sure you saw a lot of like really great review on YouTube telling you that Fedora 42 is the king of the Fedora. And you are certainly at this point like, why, Air Max, are you telling us that you have been disappointed by, like this release in general? Well, I don't test the distribution exactly as everybody else. I noticed that most of the other YouTubers are using virtual machine, which I believe bring a lot of value in certain case scenario. But in my opinion, I rather test them raw on my bare metal PC. Like no hypervisor, no virtual environment, nothing. I just install it on a fresh SSD on my machine. And I have to do it because I'm testing games. And honestly, like you can test like how a game perform on Linux in a virtual machine. Like it will make my life way easier if I just tested them in a virtual machine. But the truth is that for my type of review, I need to be hands-on. And I do believe that most of you guys, when you're going to install Fedora, you're not going to install it in a virtual machine. You're going to install it on your PC. My approach is going to be totally different from any, I would say, like most of the other reviewers out there. And I'm not saying that to bash them. Again, I believe they bring value in their, approach. But me, like the way I test distro is really like, okay, how does it install? How does it perform into, gaming? What is my experience on the distro itself with my hardware? That's all. It's not about, if something changed, like at what level, like I don't go that in depth. It's more like, okay, how is the experience out of the box on my PC? So now you understand let's get into the pro. And by pro, I mean positive. So the first one is related to the Fedora Workstation installation and their new Anaconda web UI. I have to say that it has been one of the most, if not the most, awesome experience for a new user when installing a distro. I have to say it. They did an incredible job. The UI is like minimalistic. You have everything like which pop out really clear. It's a bit advanced compared to Anaconda, and I would say like even all the other like GUI installer out there. I think this is such a good, fresh way to install your distro. Like it's just like crazy. Well, you will see after there is some cons related to that, and I was pretty disappointed. But like if you look at how we look and how they set up everything, it's a banger. So on this, good job, guys. Now when it comes to the KDE Plasma edition, now it's not a spin anymore. I have to stay the install, like it's still the same. They don't use the other like Anaconda web UI. It's only for the workstation, but it was still a great experience, and I had no problem at all installing this Fedora 42 on my machine. And that's all for the pro related to the distro itself. When it comes to the experience and gaming, I did some tests, and because they are pushing like the latest kernel and they did like major improvement even in the previous release, we are at a point now where you are almost at the same level of performance than a CachyOS, which is built and optimized out of the box. Like I have to say, they kind of reduced the gap before what it was like 2 or 3 releases ago, and this is great. Now, in terms of like pure performance, if you look at the number, you can say like it's margin of error. You can say that CachyOS is a little bit above. From the little testing we did for like 2 or 3 hours, we were in between like 1% and 3% on the average and the minimum lows. So honestly, like I think it's super good. You're gonna have on paper a great experience for gaming. And I'm saying like on paper, because now we're going to talk about the cons. And the cons, they are going to start really, really strong. I had a huge issue related to Steam. And this is, in my opinion, like just incredible. Right now, it's really hard to understand after looking at all the log, after looking at all the different issues in the different GitLab, whether it was for Mesa or Fedora or Steam, or I've made my research, but I'm still not able to really pinpoint what is the cause of this issue. But what I can tell you though is that this Steam bug is only happening on Fedora 42 fresh install. So let me explain. So when you are on the KDE install, and you will see that I couldn't really try the workstation, but we'll see like this is gonna be the next negative point. But like let's focus on Steam right now. So the way it works is that you have to add the third-party repo to install Steam, because you could install Steam via Flatpak, but installing Steam via Flatpak is not the right way if you listen to the developer of Steam themselves, Valve. Valve recommend using the native version of Steam and not the Flatpak one on Linux. Could you use Flatpak? Yes, you could. But me, I'm following the recommendation and I'm using the native version. However, this is important to add the Steam native version because it's a proprietary software. You have to add a third-party repo. Adding the third-party repo on the KDE version edition of Fedora, well, no problem. It was easy, I had to make 2 clicks, everything went fine. When it came to install Steam on a fresh Fedora 42, it is impossible. So you will install it, but then it will crash. You can't launch it. And one of the members of La Crème de la Crème Club during the stream gave me the right command, the right environment variable to launch Steam on Fedora. But listen to me, like this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable because whether we know the issue or not, because right now I was unable to really like find it. Like is that, as I mentioned earlier, like is it NVIDIA, is it Mesa, is it them? Like I don't know. This is the only distro so far that had this issue. out of the box. So some of you are going to tell me like, well, Air Max, it's a non-issue. You just install the Flatpak version. No. I want to run native. I don't understand why Fedora versus Ubuntu or Arch, why Fedora it doesn't launch it. Like, I want to be honest with you, like, I don't get it. And this, to me, it kind of shows that somehow something went wrong in the release process. Like, it feels like they kind of like rush it, but I'm not done. A bigger problem related to the Workstation install. You remember, as I told you, like, the installer is awesome, and I will still believe like it's awesome. The issue is that I was never able to pass the installer. I was never able to test Fedora 42 on my machine. And before you start to say, yes, it's an NVIDIA issue, it's your hardware, or it's you being just incompetent, like Steam, the Steam issue I just mentioned, a lot of users in the chat were like, hey, I couldn't do it. I was stuck exactly the same point as you. Like, this is a problem. Like, this is a big problem. So if you look at the install, the way it works is like, you start your PC, you launch your Ventoy key with your Fedora workstation on it, you do the process of installing, then it reboots on your hard drive, and then you have the creation of the user process. I couldn't pass this one. Each time I got a big hard freeze. I couldn't move on. Does it sound like an NVIDIA issue? Does it sound like an AMD issue? I have no idea. Like, I can't tell because it's totally frozen. I can debug, but there is a huge problem there. So I couldn't go into the workstation environment. I couldn't really test like GLOM48 on Fedora on my machine. It's just a mess. Again, I did install GLOM48 on CachyOS, on multiple other distro, no problem. This one, impossible. Like, this morning, I just tested Ubuntu. It was working flawlessly. Fedora, we don't know. So that was kind of the cause of my disappointment, because I was really like eager to try it. After the install, I was like, man, like, the installation is so good, and now I'm stuck. So this is the big problem. And the even like bigger problem, when I tried to reboot on my Ventoy key to test like the cosmic Fedora spin, because this is what I wanted to do after. I was like, okay, I gave up, it doesn't work. Well, I noticed that my UEFI partition from my Ventoy key got deleted by the Fedora workstation installer. Both. Like, come on, guys. Like, what is happening? So I was really surprised. I had to redo everything fresh. But long story short, if you have multiple hard drive, or if you just use a Ventoy key, I will say be careful with the Fedora 42 workstation installation. It just shot my EFI partition on site during the installation. I didn't do anything wrong. I checked the replay of my installation, or at least like attempted installation. Carnage. So this, be careful. Again, I had other like user in the chat telling me like they had the same issue. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is actually like kind of bad. And it kind of made me think again about the fact that they kind of like rushed this launch, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe they don't have any tester. We'll talk about it after, but like, there is definitively something which has not been tested during the testing phase. Now, as I mentioned, the third problem, I was like, you know what, let's try the Cosmic Edition. Cosmic Edition, I couldn't even boot on the drive itself, so I booted on it, but I couldn't launch the desktop session, to be super clear. And the thing is, like, I didn't have access to the TTY, couldn't log in, again, another mess, so I just give up. Which means that on most of the machine, maybe with NVIDIA card or maybe with AMD card, I don't know. Like, again, I got feedback from the chat saying they had exactly the same issue with AMD. But like, depending on your graphic card, maybe, or maybe the ISO itself is not great. I can't really tell because I didn't test on multiple machines. But I can assure you that the Cosmic Spin, as it is right now, the ISO is not ready for production. And it was one of the big announcements, right? Like, it was like, you know, kind of a rough one. And yeah. Yeah. So the last one is related to the KDE install. And here, another point that kind of struck me is the fact that, okay, you move from Spin to Edition, right? So I was expecting a little bit more fluidity in everything. And to be fair, to me, what makes this or another distro really fluid with my NVIDIA card is the installation of the driver. And here you still have to go in the terminal to install the driver on KDE. On the previous iteration of Fedora 41, I was able to boot on the workstation and the drivers, they were installed out of the box, which was awesome. So I was expecting them to do the same on KDE, but they didn't deliver. There is not even a GUI inside to install the driver. I searched, there is nothing. So you have to do a sudo dnf install akmod-nvidia, and if you want a NVIDIA SMI, you need to know the exact name of the package to install that. And I think it's a missed opportunity there. Because, you know, even if most of the open source lover hate NVIDIA, well, NVIDIA users are still a massive part of the market share. Like what, like 85%, 80%? So we need to treat them right if we expect the market share of Linux to grow up. And again, here, missed opportunity, in my opinion. All right, so how do we conclude this one? So I hope you understand that overall, like I'm super disappointed, and I explain the reason why I'm disappointed. I think at this stage, when you are like Fedora and you are the window shopper of the Linux distro out there, like you are the one innovating, you are the one always in advance. And we are, I believe, in a polishing phase. Like we are at a spot where there is no new crazy, I would say, like technology to push. You just have to polish the end product. There is a lot of missed opportunity here. Like a lot of missed opportunity and something that, in my opinion, feel like rushed, like really rushed. So I've been mentioning it for the last like 3 releases. Each time I try Fedora, there is always something wrong, and then you get polished, you know, like 1, 2, 3 months after. And even after having discussion with some like Fedora hardcore users, they all told me I always wait before moving from the previous iteration of Fedora to the new one, because there is always a lot of things to polish. But this is, I believe, like the real issue here. Do we have at Fedora a problem related to the release cycle? Like, are the release cycle too short? Do we do enough testing? Do we have enough people testing? Like, I'm not a Fedora user, right? I know how it works on the Arch side, what is the whole process, and how successful it is, and especially for the last, like I would say, like year and a half, 2 years, like Arch is becoming like more like stable. We didn't have like huge like problem compared to what we had, like let's say in the last 5 years, 4 years. Like what's happening at Fedora? Like if you look at, again, like the changelog and you really focus on the point which, in my opinion, like are the real like game changer, like none of them was a clear win. It was all like a mixed kind of like feedback. Yeah, you have the new installer, but you can't install the ISO. Yeah, you have the new desktop environment, Cosmic, but you can't arrive on the desktop environment with the ISO. You know what I mean? I'm like, and you know, you have KDE, which is finally not a spin anymore, and you have the opportunity to kind of flush or iron out all the little issue, little bug, make the experience like even better. I'm talking about the NVIDIA driver, like they are provided on the workstation. Well, you don't do it. So I'm like what's the point? And this is why I'm disappointed, because if we have a new user out there who is waiting for the new release of Fedora and burn a key, launch it, and boom, he destroys his UEFI in one case scenario, or he tried to install NVIDIA, but he need a PhD in Linux to install it. You know, it kind of look bad. It's just my 2 cents, okay? Like, and maybe I'm saying that because I'm disappointed, because I had like high expectation towards Fedora 42, because I knew like it would not be like a big technical, like I would say a risk or challenge. It was just like, okay, we are upgrading version, most of the packages, and adding like, you know, a new like edition there. But no, like it went totally sideways in my, you know, in my opinion. So, yes. So this is where I'm gonna leave it for Fedora 42. Maybe 1 month or 2 months after the release of the video, it's gonna be a totally different experience. I really hope they're gonna be able to fix everything. But to date, you know, running a new Fedora release 1 week, because it was like 1 week after the official release, I would say like just avoid it. And if you're on the previous Fedora release, just stay on there, wait 1 or 2 months, and then upgrade. Like the risk versus reward is just not there. And if you are a new user, well, you're gonna have to document yourself and see what point of the release you are in. I would recommend to the new user, like, install the previous version, even if it doesn't make sense, or just wait a little, like use another distro, because yeah, there is a lot of issue on those new Fedora like push. So yeah, this is where we are at for Fedora 42. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to put a thumbs up, put a comment below, let me know what was your experience on Fedora for this release or even the previous release. I don't know, maybe it's just a me problem. Also, I want to thank all the YouTube members and all the Patreon members who are supporting this channel every month. You guys are the best. Thank you again for your support. It helps a lot. If you are watching this channel on a, you know, weekly basis, daily basis, please, if you want to support the adventure financially, you have no idea how much it helps. Please do it. And until then, have a great rest of your day and see you in the next one. Bisous, bisous.